Alright, welcome back. So right now in this video we're going to do some more unit conversions, but most of these are going to be to do with multi-step conversions, which means instead of going from straight from one unit to the other, we might go through a couple of units first before we actually get to the units we want. So let's look at our first one. We have A, and for A we have 3,200 millimeters to meters. So if we go from millimeters, we're going to first divide by 10 to get to centimeters, and then divide by 100 to get to meters. So we do 2 steps to get there. So let's do our first one, A. So for A, what we need to do is start out with 3,200, and then we're going to divide by 10, and that will give us our centimeters. So dividing this by 10 will give us 320, and then we're going to essentially take our 320 centimeters and divide it by 100, and this will give us 3.2 meters. So dividing by 100, move that decimal place 2 spaces to the left. Alright, let's look at B. So for B, we're doing 6.5 meters to millimeters. So to go from meters to millimeters, what we need to do is first multiply it by 100 and get our centimeters, and then after that multiply by 10 to get our millimeters. So 6.5 meters is going to be equal to 6.5 times 100, which is going to be 650 centimeters. And then to go from that, we're going to multiply it further by 10. So this is actually going to be equal to 650 times 10, which is equal to 6,500 millimeters. Now you can see that millimeters and meters are related to each other in that what we have is 1,000 times our meters. And that's what the prefix milli actually means. So when we want to go straight from meters to millimeters, we could instead just multiply by 1,000. And to go from millimeters to meters, we could instead divide by 1,000. Alright, let's look at C. So for C, we have 480 centimeters and we want to turn it into kilometers. So let's do our 480, and our first step from getting from centimeters to kilometers is going to be getting from centimeters to meters. So we're going to divide by 100. 480 divided by 100 just means move that decimal place twice to the left and we get 4.8 meters. Now to go from our meters to our kilometers, we need to divide this further by 1,000. So we can do 4.8 divided by 1,000. Now in order to do this, we're going to need a few more zeros out the front. So let's just put 3 out here, and we're going to move our decimal place 3 spaces, once, twice, 3 times. So this is going to be equal to 0.0048 kilometers. Alright, let's do D. Now for D, we have 18,000 millimeters and we want to change this to kilometers. So we're going to start out with our 18,000, and we're going to first make this instead of making our move from millimeters to centimeters, we're going to go straight from millimeters all the way to meters by dividing by 1,000. So let's divide it by 1,000. Alright, 18,000 divided by 1,000 is how many times is 1,000 going to 18,000? Well, it goes in 18 times. So this is in fact 18 meters. Now to get to kilometers, we need to do 18 divided by 1,000. Okay, again, put a couple of zeros out the front, and move the decimal place. We imagine past the 18, we're going to move it back 3 spaces, once, twice, 3 times, so this actually equals 0.018 kilometers. Alright, here's a few for you to practice, so just give them a go, give the video a pause, and then I will solve them. Alright, let's get started. So let's go to G. So G has us doing 172,000 centimeters to meters. So we're going to start out with 172,000, and ultimately to go from centimeters to meters, it's a small unit going to a larger unit, so we need to divide. So let's divide by 100, and that's going to be equal to, moving the decimal place once and twice, 1,720 meters. If we look at H, we have 7.8 kilometers to centimeters. So first we go from kilometers to meters by multiplying by 1,000. So let's do 7.8 multiplied by 1,000. And that just means we move that decimal place 3 spaces to the right, so it's going to be 7,800 meters. Now, we're not done yet, we need to convert it to centimeters. So 7,800 needs to be multiplied further by 100. Now, to do that, we can just add on 2 extra zeros at the end. So we can do 7,800 and then 2 zeros at the end, so we end up with 780,000 centimeters. Alright, let's do I. So for I, we have 620,000 millimeters to meters. So we do 620,000, and because we want to go from millimeters to meters, and we know from our last one that instead of doing 2 steps, we can bypass both of them and instead divide by 1,000. We can divide this by 1,000 to go straight from millimeters to meters, and we will get 620 meters. Okay, let's do J. So for J we have 5.43, and its meters make into centimeters. So we know that there are 100 centimeters in every meter, so we need to times this by 100. So this will actually involve us moving the decimal place once and twice to the right, and we'll get 543 centimeters. Alright, so for our next one, let's do K. So for K we have 3.8 kilometers, and we want to change it to millimeters. So for 3.8 kilometers, first we want to take it to from kilometers to meters. So we're going to do that by multiplying it by 1,000. So let's do that first. And what that will equal is 3,800 meters. Now after that, to go from meters all the way to millimeters, we can do 100 times 100 to get to centimeters, and then times 10 to get to millimeters. Or alternatively, we can multiply by 1,000 to go straight from meters to millimeters, and that's what we're going to do. So we're doing 3,800, and we're going to multiply it by 1,000. And that just means adding on 3 extra zeros, so 3,800, and then we're going to add on 3 zeros, so we get 3.8 million millimeters, sorry. Right, so we end up going from 3.8 kilometers will be 3,800,000 millimeters. Alright, that's it for this video. Hopefully it was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.